Good evening, everyone. It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce the writer and director of Motel Destino, Karim Aïnouz. Karim, this film is very near and dear to me, as it's work like yours that inspired this film screening series. And Motel Destino, in particular, encompasses everything that Voyeuriste is to me. So thank you so much again for taking the time to chat today and for sharing this beautiful gem of a film with us.
I'm very happy to share the film. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk about it, exchange about it. So it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, let's dive right in. First off, I'd love to talk about the music in your film. When I first watched Motel Destino, Pega o Guanabara Vem was stuck in my head for like days, probably weeks, and I to it on repeat. What's the music selection process like for you? Do you write cues into the script beforehand, or is it something that comes about more in post?
Yeah, listen, I think it's twofold. I think there's what I call the soundtrack, like which is the songs or like the not the song, but the tracks that are written for for the film, for the movie, which are written afterwards. And then there is always a number of songs that I'm always thinking about when I think about even before the script is written. So these are songs that somehow guide me in terms of mood throughout the process of writing the script, of imagining the characters, and so on. So most of those songs they do stay, even if there are not many. And I think in Motel Destino, there's particularly one song which is the one that you just mentioned that was with me forever. It's a song that I actually it's funny when I go, particularly when I'm making a movie in Brazil, it's most of them, all of them are shot on location. So when I'm on location researching for locations and places we can shoot and so on, there's always a lot of public radio playing around the small towns that we shoot in. So there's songs that are played over and over again. And I think Pega Guanabara Vem, the one that they dance in front of the pool, is a song that's it's a very popular track, in that part of the country. And I've been wanting to use it forever. And it was very interesting because I didn't know where and I didn't know how. And it was very interesting because it was just kind of this obsession that I thought that that song had a lot to do with the story. But, when I first thought about having it in the film, I didn't really make the connection. This is like the unconscious sort of guides you in some ways. And so I thought, wow, this has a lot to do with the story, but there's also something, the fact that it's a very popular song. So, it depends. On this case, that scene where they dance to that music, it was not even on the script. So there was a moment during the shoot that I thought, well, I need to use this song. I had to ask production to clear it, and so I identified it that there was the best moment to have it, and that scene came along with that. So it's a very organic process on how to choose the songs. I think, particularly in Motel Destino, it was very important to find tracks that were very much kind of corresponding to that environment, to that context, to those places where the film is shoot, where we shoot the movie. It's almost like choosing a location, it's choosing songs that somehow translate, the place where the story takes place, but also have to do with the story. And then the rest of the music in the movie was very much composed afterwards. It was very much composed to the editing, was composed to the film, because I think the film really becomes a movie and comes together in the editing room. So I think it was very much a collaboration with the composer that was based not on the final cut, but the cut just before.
That actually brings me to my next question. You segued into that perfectly. I'm wondering how you and Amin linked up.
Never worked together. We had met in a couple of film festivals. He's from Tunisia, and I'm half Algerian, and I think it was really interesting. I've always wanted to collaborate with the composer from North Africa, and I thought maybe this is not the movie, maybe this is on another movie. Where it would be shot there because I'm developing also a project, in Algeria. But we connected. It was an idea of the producer who is a French producer who reintroduced us. We had met in different festivals and in situations, professional situations. And it was really great because I think that there was something of finding the instrument. Um, I'm always looking like what is the instrument, this film where like somehow evokes the story better. And I think it was just really interesting to find that with him. And I think he also brought many elements from his own culture, which I think there is always this feeling that where I come from, despite of my background, the province I come from is called Ceará. In Ceará, it's like a Brazilian version of Sahara. So I've always been flirting with rhythms which are somewhat North African rhythms and chords, and tempos. And it was a really wonderful encounter. And I think he brought a lot to the film. And I think he brought something which is this ambience, which is very local, but yet it's not, that it talks to other parts of the world. And I think it was really, really incredible the work that he's done on the soundtrack. And I was really happy to collaborate with someone else from the Global South. I think there was something there that I think it was really important to me that there was a composer that somehow, yeah, understood, what is this environment, what is the temperature, like the basics of the basics in the sense of like where we're shooting, how people live there. So it was really exciting to work with him. It was the first time.
Collaboration worked out beautifully in his score and obviously with the marriage to image in your film. The
Thank
end
you.
credits song, I guess it's the end song bleeding into end credits. Is that a means or is that an actual cue?
It's a mix. You mean the techno song?
Yes.
Yeah, listen, it was like this. We finished the movie, and I just felt I really want to sort of leave the cinema with a sense of propulsion, with a sense of like
Very
explosion, with a
powerful.
sense of
Mhm.
anger, but also not sort of a toxic anger, but somewhat like an anger that made you change the world, that made you have sort of a response to what happened that was upbeat, but yet powerful. And so I always felt like it would be really good. I think we did that track after the film was selected for like to be in the Cannes selection. And I thought it would be so good if we finished this movie and people were actually sort of dancing in the cinema. Like I'm super
I
interested in
was.
sort of
I
how
was
your brain
dancing.
is seeming. I've been doing this a lot with all my movies, I think since the beginning. I mean, it's this kind of, shape shifting of cinema into clubbing, like that I think I'm really interested as an experience of like joy, an experience of pleasure, an experience of like a physical experience, which is not only in your head, in your heart, but it's like in your body. So he composed that, and there was this wonderful guy who was working with us in the mixing stage. So who DJs a lot in like in parties here in Berlin, and I think it was, I mean, did the main composition, and then I brought, some elements from this wonderful guy, and I think it was also to do not only with the music, but like the way it was edited and the pictures, and it was very much close to these beautiful moments that I recall of like experimental cinema and where cinema was something else, and I think the film was shot in 16. So it was a mixture of creating a sensation. I like to use, I'm like a hungry child, I like to use every second that I have the right to use when I'm making a movie. So credits are not just credits. It's a moment where you say goodbye to an audience. It's a moment where there is something you take with you. So I think it was through this that we thought, this this sort of almost tribal experience of being in the same room and, sort of, heart beating to the same track. And so it was a collaboration. It was also a collaboration that we did in with the mixer, which was really great, of how it goes up and goes down. So it was like DJing for a movie. It was really exciting.
You articulated it perfectly and took the words out of my mouth. It's funny, one of my mantras for Voyeuriste, it truly does, Motel Destino truly does encompass everything that it is to me because one of my mantras is my venue of choice in my 20s, in my youth, used to be the club, but now it's the cinema. And the type of films that are nearest and dearest to my heart, I'm noticing, not by coincidence, are the ones that I'm dancing to, the ones that get me moving in my seat. Um,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just me and this guy next to me, complete strangers. We were sitting in our
yeah,
seats 20 minutes after the credits rolled, but we were both dancing throughout. And at the end, we were just haunted, just like, whoa, what just hit us? We need to digest this. It's a very
completely.
powerful and beautiful experience. And yeah, thank you for sharing that with all of us. It's very unique and it's special. And I obviously have
Thank
been very moved
you.
by it. And I understand that feeling. It's just like it feels like I always felt that cinema is a celebration, you know, we should all be celebrating.
Oh, completely. And it's also a
Yeah.
celebration of the body. It's a celebration of being together. And I think it was so beautiful. I mean, for me, it's really interesting. Like, what is it that you grab onto and what is it that you share? And like, what's the memory of that moment when you finish a movie? So, it's always like a big question on how you end it, what mood you leave people in. And yes, and I think it's super important for me. I'm always interested in transitioning from a cinema to a club. I think it's always the perfect leeway, into finishing a movie.
Speaking of dance and music playing an important roles in your film, are you musical yourself? Are you a musician?
Really strange. No, I'm not musical at all. I was raised by a mother who was a scientist. She was a solo mother. We
Oh,
didn't
that's
listen to
amazing.
music in the
Wow.
house. Yeah, it was amazing, but we never had music in the house, and so I'm really ignorant music-wise. I really don't understand how music is fabricated and conceptualized, but I am I love clubbing. I think it's the best thing in life, more than making films, more than in watching films. I just love clubbing, and I was always afraid to say this so openly because I always felt this is so superficial and so on. But clubbing for me is a real place of exchange. It's a real place of horizontality. And so dancing for me has always been something very much at the center of my life, independent of my work or what it is. So, in clubbing, particularly clubbing, because I mean, I'm not the kind of person who can look at somebody singing. I find that really, and I cannot go to a concert where I mean, I need something visual and I need like exchange. So music has been a huge part of my life because of clubbing and because of also coming from a country I mean, I think there's two things more here, like coming from a country where music is part of everyday life, it plays in public space. It was very interesting now, just like as a detour. I was in Cairo a couple of weeks ago doing research for a movie, and it was very interesting how quiet it was, and the only sounds you listen publicly are like the prayers. And like in Brazil, it's the opposite, like you just listen like in the main square of any town, there's a lot too much noise even, but I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of music, and I think my education music wise has been very much through pop music. And I think also queer culture is a culture that's very much kind of based in music and the club space and the dance floor. So this is how I started my relationship with music. Very ignorant. So it's always complicated when I'm talking to a composer to say what I want, because it's very tricky because I don't really have the sort of tools to explain, what's the harmony and like, so it's a very intuitive relationship that I would say I have with music. It's a very physical and bodily experience I have with music, but it's not at all conceptual or analytical. So it's always very tricky, I'm always having these moments where I have a conversation with composers that I know are doing music for the movies, where it's hard to express, where it's hard to get there. I mean, we do get there, but yeah, no relationship to music, just a sheer appreciation of how music can actually um, be present in your daily life more than the sort of object. And I also think there is something about music that I really admire, despite my ignorance, which is it's not something, it really goes through your senses. It's not something you can analyze. It's not something that you can judge. It's beyond judgment. It's something that it has a very physical, not psychological relationship to where you are and like the way it triggers memory. So I'm a huge fan. I just don't know how to get there or how to do it or how to analyze it.
I agree with you. I think although the composers and the musicians will obviously argue that music is something very intellectual, and it is, but inherently, I feel like music is something of the body, very sensual, of the senses, everything that you just articulated just now.
Yes.
And in that way, I don't feel like non-musicians like you and I are ignorant. We have our own knowledge in our own way because we feel it deeply, and it's almost as if we have the heart of a musician, but aren't musicians. We understand in a different way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also think I understand and I value it because I think it is the soul of a movie, like it is that, that you don't decipher, that's full of mystery, that is kind of taking you and taking the story places, which is quite magic. So I'm a huge respect for it, and I think yeah, it's I think one of the things whenever I think of humanity, um, I've been questioning humanity a lot lately. I mean, we've been doing some really bad stuff in the last couple of years, but there's one thing that whenever I think of being human being, there's something that has to do with music. And whenever I see incredible music, I say, wow, this species is a species that can do music. This is quite special. This is really, really beautiful and extraordinary. So, I have this absolute fascination with music.
It's so important. It brings us all together, just like cinema does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Next, I'd like to chat about the motel as a character, or at least what I interpreted from the film was that Motel Destino is the fourth main character to me. Um,
Completely.
Everything
Completely.
about the film is very dreamlike, everything from the cinematography and the colors to the music, and the characters themselves are very strong. I'm curious, how did the concept come about? For me, it's so dreamlike from beginning to end. I'm almost wondering if it did come about from a dream.
Listen, I think it's a lot of things, but I think I think I always had this intuition that it was a really interesting place. It's a place of fantasy, like it's a place where you can be whoever you want to be. It's a place of anonymity. It's a place where desire has no rules, like it's really a place that's ruled by desire and therefore fantasy. So it's always been in my life and also in my radar, to make a movie that would take place there. And I think what's extraordinary here when I started to sort of push this and actually understand why, I think there's a real, this is going to sound a bit crazy, but it's like almost like the motel is the space of the unconscious, like it's this place where it's unfiltered, it's um it's just magic, it's dangerous, like it's a place where you don't really know what the rules are. So I think this is how I think there's something so strong between the connection of Diana and Heraldo, which is through desire. It's not through language, it's not through psychology, it's really through a sense that, that we are stronger together. If we are doing something, then we are alone. There's a sense of solidarity. And I thought that the motel, it just seemed to me like a really beautiful, exciting cinematic space where a lot of the relationships that are established between those three characters, and now I'm talking about also about Elise, that I think it would be, it just seemed to me like the perfect space to negotiate those relationships. And I think that there's something quite playful about it that I really love. There's something playful yet dangerous. There's playful and colorful. Yeah, it is the place. For me, it is the ultimate place where there's no judgment, there are no rules. And I thought and it's also very strange because it's very detached from the world. So it's also isolated. And I think for a character like Heraldo who is on the run, to be in a place like that is also a place of protection. So, it served so many different elements in terms of the story and of like, the characters and the relation between the characters and I don't know, and also to make it very simple, I've always wanted to do a movie. I'm obsessed with motels and hotels and these places that are somehow these known places, these places that you can make it, you can pretend it's your home, but it's not. And I think it's also something that's been so common, in the in a particular film genre, which is the noir, which is the thriller. It's this place of that you go to escape and to hide. So there was a tradition, there's also a tradition, that's there in many different films that inspired me to choose this place. But there is a very specific meaning of the motel in Brazilian culture. In Brazil, it's a space that started out in the 1970s when there was the sexual liberation, but yet it's a military dictatorship. There was this contradiction between a country that was becoming very free and a country that was becoming very tied up in politics and in a dictatorship. So I also wanted to do something that had to do with the Brazilian understanding of what the motel was. So it was a really rich space. We're now actually developing a series that takes place in that motel, and there's so many possibilities in terms of like ghosts, and in terms of like crime, and in terms of you know intimate and romantic relationships. So it's been a really beautiful, let's say, arena, for storytelling.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Motel Destino lives on in potentially a series. Wow.
Yeah,
Keep me
yeah, no,
posted
I'm
as you
very
progress
happy.
on that. I admittedly am such a purist and I only watch films. I consume
No,
books and
me
films like
too.
crazy. But I will watch TV for you. Just let me know when it's on.
You know what? But me too. I'm like, I love watching films. I'm not like the episodic storytelling type and stuff. But here, it's one of those projects that I felt there is still something else there that I need to work out, you know, and that's why I thought it was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it felt like such a rich arena to tell stories and to dive into characters and and to talk about intimacy. So that's how it came about.
That's amazing. That really makes my day. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah,
Speaking of
it's gonna be fun.
desire, speaking of desire, uh, the theme of the love triangle is a recurring one in Voyeuriste. There are a couple other films throughout since its inception 2 years ago that also explore that theme. I'm wondering what is it about the love trio or triangle that attracts you the most, as opposed to the traditional couple or duo?
I think on the case of this movie in particular, I think what was really exciting is that when you have a couple and you have this element that comes in and questions the couple, questions the dynamic. I think particularly on the case of this movie, there was a dynamic which was quite toxic between Elias and Diana. And I think when this element comes in, so it's about change. It's about, questioning. I think there's something about the imbalance of the triangle that I find very exciting. And I think also um it triggers desire in a way which is somewhat very unexpected. So I thought there was something very dynamic about the trio here, particularly that I was really interested in. And I think it does give, it does give a certain propulsion to a story. But again, it's not one or the other. I do think that here what I thought was very interesting is the arrival of a new element can somehow make you question a relationship that you're in that perhaps you were trapped in or that's not been healthy for you. So I think it was this element of this young kind of, young man coming in, invading the space, taking onto the space, and perhaps perhaps changing things for the better because things were somewhat locked into a certain dynamic.
And a lot of what you've said is the same reason why I've picked this as a recurring theme within the films I curated. Earlier, you mentioned the theme of ghosts in Motel Destino. I'd also like to
Yeah.
chat with you about that. I um,
Cool.
I don't know what your experiences are like, and we can talk about that now. But I personally have had quite a few experiences with spirits and with ghosts, and some are positive, some not so positive. So yeah, I'm curious what
Yeah.
your experiences have been.
Listen, it's very tricky because I'm like a materialist, like I'm somebody who believes in the now and now, and it believes, in the body, that believes in something which is very concrete. But I'm fascinated by a certain kind of filmmaking, which does deal with the ghosts, which does deal with the supernatural, that does deal with, as I said before, with something which is metaphysical or, that's something that's not something you can. Because there's this thing in filmmaking, right? You can only write or you can shoot. And I think I'm really fascinated by writing or something that you can't really shoot. Like, how can you shoot like a haunting situation or a ghost or so it's something that's been with me forever. It's a big contradiction because despite the fact that in real life I don't really believe or felt or I've been in a situation where I've been in the presence of spirits or ghosts, I understand they exist, I understand they're there, and I also felt I've tried to do it's very funny because I've tried to do this in different films, and at the end it really drops out in the script level. It's like, oh no, maybe not now. And in Motel Destino, it wasn't on the script, but when I was in that motel, I did feel it was haunted. There was something about that place. Perhaps because people were killed there, perhaps because people left their soul there. There was these elements, in the in the space that I felt were really haunting. And so it's very spontaneous. It totally came about. And I thought also that it was like a space that's populated by the ghosts that are in the head of Heraldo, like in the heart of Heraldo. So I felt it would be a really interesting possibility to play around with something which is so cinematic, which is like these haunted animals and the places and this corridor, there's all these elements that I think are very much there in horror movies, right? When you think about the trope of the motel and the hotel. But it really happened very spontaneously. I don't really want to decipher what those things are, but I think there's certainly things that are haunting our characters, particularly Heraldo. And I also felt that there was something about that space of the motel, that there's something very feral about it. There's something which is beyond, again, which is very sensual, which is very physical. And I thought bringing animals into that space. I just woke up one day, I think it was the second week of shooting, and I thought, wow, what about if we had an animal in that corridor? And I didn't really know what it meant, why I wanted to do it, but I did feel like that there was something really interesting about bringing these beautiful beings, to inhabit a place which is a place of fantasy. So yes, I think that the decision was very intuitional. I think I know what they do. I think they create the sense of being haunted, this place, that has these things that happen that you can't really decipher visually. And I think it was also, I was revisiting a lot of surreal cinema when I was making this film, and also revisiting the idea that, cinema and particularly feature filmmaking is not only about story and narration and causality, but also about something else. It's about a mood, it's about something you can't really explain. And so that's how the ghosts and the animals and all these elements, which are somehow fantastic, came around on this film. It's a new adventure for me.
Probably the most important ghost or spirit that lives on in Heraldo's life is, of course, the ghost of his brother. Um,
Yes.
one of the most moving, my favorite part in the film is the moment when, after lovemaking, Heraldo and Diana go and have lunch in the lunchroom, and
Yes.
Heraldo recounts a very terrible childhood memory of their mother's boyfriend abusing them. And then he then confides in Diana, telling her that his older brother killed the boyfriend in order to protect the two of them. And being part of the sibling duo, this moment in the film really moved me. It moved me to tears, and it's my favorite for that reason. Um, the bond between the two
Um,
of them is so strong, and I'm curious if you yourself are part of a sibling duo or if you have any siblings yourself. And if so, did they inspire, do people near and dear to your heart inspire the two brothers in this film?
Listen, that's a really good question because I'm an only son. I have a half sister who I met when I was 20 years old. So I'm
Oh,
technically and not an only son because we're super close now, but I grew up as an only son. And I think it's really crazy. I didn't realize this, but a lot of my movies are about, sister-sister relationship, brother-brother relationship, brother-sister relationship. I have no experience having a brother. I think I always have this fantasy that I would have a brother, I would have a sister. So I think cinema is also this place where you somehow, you know, live your fantasy. And I think here it was really interesting, the sense of solidarity that these two kids have. I think I'm fascinated by this because as an only son, I've always been really interested in solidarity and how solidarity is constructed, because I think it's a given when you have a brother or sister, but when you are alone in the world, these are ties you need to construct. These are ties that you need to bring together and then you need to care for. And I think they've been coming back in every single movie I've made. It's either like Invisible Life is about two sisters, Praia do Futuro is about two brothers, this one is about two brothers. So I don't know, it's just these lacks that I think cinema helps you fulfill. And on the case of Heraldo, I think it's also to do again, I think there's a real sense of like complicity and solidarity that I'm obsessed with, particularly in this film, the relationship between Heraldo, but also his brother. So I don't know, it was something that, I'm sometimes cinema is a really great place to kind of, invent things you haven't lived, Fiction is a great place for that. So no, I don't have a brother. I have this half sister who I adore, but like who I've met at an older age. So, but I've always felt really, I really missed having such a strong bond with someone that you grew up with.
well, it's beautiful that you, like you said, you're able to live this out through your cinema, and it was beautifully captured in this film. Um,
Oh, thank you. No, no, no. It was really interesting for me. It was such a powerful, yeah, it's like, and I think his sense of desolation, his sense of being left alone, and like, I think it really is important to understand also his attraction and his love for Diana.
just to let you know that it looks like the timer is going off at 8 minutes 40 seconds. So we do have room for one more question.
Okay, let's go. It's
Yes.
such a pleasure. Tell me.
um, Congratulations on the recent success of your recent feature, Rosebush Pruning. I'm so happy for
Thank
you.
you.
I Would you like to share with our audience what's next for you?
I prefer not to because I'm a little superstitious. Like what's
Okay.
next to me now is actually rosebush pruning and making sure it goes out in the world. But I'm also very superstitious. I prefer to say what's next when it's actually being shot. because I've had experiences that I've shared what's
Yeah,
next and it doesn't happen. So,
I totally
but
get
you know,
that.
I'm working, I'm the kind of director, I'm working on a bunch of things at the same time. I love making films, you know, and I'm always have different things, in different stages of production or development. So I think I'm going to shoot a movie this year and then another one at the beginning of next year. So
So
that's a big
exciting.
thing.
I
And
cannot
Yoga
wait.
Schooling is coming out in July. So that's exciting as well.
When will it come out in the US so I can check it
It
out?
will come out there the 23rd of July.
Oh, July in the US. Oh, great.
Yes,
Wait,
yes. I'm
are
super
you
happy.
coming to are you coming to the US? You
I
might.
might come. I want to come. I'd love to come to LA, New York. Let's see if that's possible with that release, but I'm super excited that it's coming out.
Well, congratulations. Well, if you make your way to LA, I'll have to show you the best clubs in LA.
Oh, please.
Yes,
Please, please, please. I'd
me and
love
my
to.
sister love to dance, so we'll take you out.
But I promise I'll keep you posted in case I make it out there, okay?
I appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much again. You have
Wonderful.
no idea how much it means to me you taking the time to chat. You've been
No,
an
it's a
idol of
pleasure.
mine for a decade or more, so thank you
Oh,
so much again.
thank you. And I'm super proud and happy that you're going to share the movie. So please keep me posted of the reactions if you can, okay?
Oh yes, definitely, I will. Thank you
All right.
again.
So
Have
listen,
a
thank you
wonderful
so
week.
much. You
Thank
too.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care.
Bye
Talk
bye.
soon. Bye bye.